Hey folks, Dude here, comedy. This is going to be an episode of Knife Blog. And yes, you're going to be looking at an empty screen for a while because I have a story behind this, so I'm going to tell you about it first before I, posit the notion and express to you and show you what I'm talking about. Okay, first and foremost, we're talking about, of all things, a knife that was a big deal back in the 1980s. We're talking like the explosion of Japanese knives. Read like your cookie cutter knives, your Explorers, your Parkers, your Seki City guys, your Taylors. All those knives were very much the same thing, except for this example. There was a company called Lifeknife, and Lifeknife came out with pretty much a cookie cutter version of one of those, hollow handle, which was a cast aluminum handle knife over a, pretty much a OK 440 stainless blade, nothing too terribly crazy. And essentially what it was is, this one that I'm going to show you now was an example of the departure therein from something, it's just pretty much just cookie cutter knives. This, however, is just not such the case. We are talking about the Lifeknife float knife. Oh, yeah, buddy. This guy right here, I got a lot of flash there, sorry. But this guy right here is the Lifeknife. So let me zoom in here so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. So you see, it says float knife. Of course, it says, of Lifeknife Inc. And of course, it does say the usual 440 stainless, made in Japan, U.S. patent pending. I'm going to zoom back out again. So, the coolest thing about this knife is, yes, I've been playing around with the edge a little bit because this thing's seen a little bit of a hard life. But the coolest part about this is yes, it is a hollow handle. This one's missing the compass. It does have all kinds of little signals on the outside, what you put on the sand to show somebody your status and how you're doing in terms of things. But if you look at the construction of this, it has the cutout in the center of the blade. It is not a huge blade profile. And essentially, when you're looking at this thing, you see the situation they're in where they pretty much have tried to make this blade not very substantial, and it's got a fairly large handle. Of course, it is a hollow handle, so it's got a lot of buoyancy. Yes, this is known as the float knife because it does float. Now, if you look at any of the survival knives along the lines of like the stuff that they have for like survival, lifeboat situations and what have yous, you almost always see they do not have an actual dagger point. They almost always have a rounded edge, or they're constructed in some way that the cutting edge is shielded in there's like a hawk beak or something that's blunted, so you can't accidentally kill your lifeboat. So, this one being a departure, this one's kind of more of a survival knife, and you know what? I'm going to put that one right there. Why? Because that's not the good example. That is the redheaded stepchild. That is not the full thing from what I'm trying to show you here, which is, I went out and I found another one. Now, you can see this one actually does have the actual case. It does actually say float knife on the little, don't miss it decal. It does actually have a sharpening stone. Nothing really much going on the back. It does actually have, the little, tag to tell you who you are when you're picking the thing up and being so cool in the process. It does have a tie down, and it is actually a knife with a compass. Now, the thing about it is most times you want to take the compass off because even 440 stainless is going to mess with the magnetic compass to some degree. Is it a good compass? Is it an compass? Yeah, it's an compass. So you actually have a scabbard here. Very, very Japanese style construction with the plastic insert riveted in place. This is actually a Cordura sheath. So they did this one really, really nicely. This one's actually built very, very stout for... Really, this thing is unbelievably light. And now I could open it up and I could show you the guts in this thing. And it is full of like fishing line and fishing hooks and a couple of other little tchotchke things, and it really doesn't have the best survival kit. I actually have touched the edge up on this one just a little bit. It has been sharpened, and they didn't sharpen it very good. You can see this blade is actually a little bit better shaped than the other one. There is some discoloration. I actually gave this thing a really good scrub with a scrubby pad, and a lot of crap came off. That said, all the discoloration and stuff, there is a process where you submerge this in, of all things, hydrogen peroxide in a plastic bag, and you put it out in summer sun, and it cooks the discoloration out. And I could do that. However, the thing is, I don't know if it's going to change the color. I don't know if it's going to really, screw with the metal and is going to mess with the fact that this thing is basically a piece of metal stuck in a piece of plastic. And you know what? I think charitably, I'm just going to leave this thing as it is. Now, the thing about it is when I bought this one wasn't up on eBay. This one did come up on eBay, and these are very, very, very hard to source. The amount of time that I've spent looking for this thing has been literally decades. I mean, I have literally been searching for this thing since probably the late 80s, shall I say. Mostly because there was a knife store that had it on display, and it went out pretty quick. You can see this thing, how light it is. I mean, it's actually, the sheath is way much heavier than the blade is, and the actual knife itself is just completely, it's featherweight, man. I mean, you pick this thing up, it's maybe 3 ounces. I doubt 4. It's just minuscule in terms of work versus, weight. And truthfully, I find it funny that they actually put some really, really good, really good saw teeth on this thing. And it is a dagger point knife. Now, in a survival situation, a dagger point knife, double-edged, it's kind of not the best. In terms of the construction, it does have this huge cutout in the middle. But the thing is, as much workload as you're going to put into this blade, the blade is not going to fail first. The handle will, because there's only about that much blade or so sticking into the handle. So you're thinking now, specs. You're going, dude, how big is this thing? Well, let's just do a little bit of looking at here. I need to grab the official 80s Podcast channel tape measure. So let's give that sucker a roll here and see what we find. So under the tape measure, of course, being backwards now by your specs, it is every bit of roughly about a 3.5-inch blade. I forget what that is in millimeters. I'll probably put that in the annotations, but width-wise, it is not even an inch wide. Blade stock, I'm going to say it was probably 3/16. Very, very thin. Probably about 4, maybe 5 millimeters at best. And it is truly a piece of, very unique timepiece for when they made them. I mean, stuff like this really, truly isn't made anymore. And these things, when they were out and around, I remember them being around, and it was just like flash in the pan. Oh, wow, it's really cool. They got it in the store. Next time we went by the mall and took a look, it was not in the window any longer. Translation, the company either failed, or they stopped being made, or they're just not around. Now, the actual Lifeknife units themselves, float knives, they're around. If you buy them new in box on eBay, they are not cheap. I mean, I've seen a couple on there that are like $300-400. I would not spend that kind of money. I did not spend that kind of money for even both of these. But I did want to have something I could put in my collection to say, yes, I now have them as part of my collection. To have it fully with the sheath and everything else, I'm stoked, man. That's good enough. Is it a good sheath design? Does it work? Yeah. I mean, am I going to be like the guy walking around on the tropical island going, oh, snap, I need to survive. I have my Lifeknife. I'm good to go. You know what? Truthfully, I think it'd be better served with a Swiss Army, but that's just me. So anyway, where we are now with this one is they were made for a while. They stopped being made for a while. The Japanese company changed names or bought the other company, and the company then became known as RESQVIVAL. So RESQVIVAL, RESQVIVAL. And they made these for a little while longer. If you look on eBay and you look for RESQVIVAL or you look for Lifeknife / float knife, you might find them. You might find that you're going to be crying when you buy them, because even the RESQVIVAL versions of these I've seen are sub $200. Now, for me to actually have a couple of these to put in my collection, I'm stoked. For me to have one missing the compass, I'm not crying. For me to have one that's fully complete, yeah, I'm good to go. I'm good to go in that regard. And I got to tell you guys, to have these now inclusive in my collection, I am definitely a happy camper. In any way, shape, and form, just to have these float knives in the first place. And I actually do have the RESQVIVAL version as well. So I do now have the RESQVIVAL, and I have the true parent company, or, progenitor, whatever you wish to call it, the precursor, the one that came before it. So the actual float knife / Lifeknife guy, I'm pretty stoked to have them both, and of course to have them now in my collection. I'm a happy dude. So this one, of course, being another occasion of, knife blog, I try to bring in the cool stuff. And when I bring out the rarities, it's because usually I just got them. They're just in my collection as of this moment. And, I'm doing a happy dance. So, folks, I'm going to break up with this one. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Another episode of Dude's Knife Blog. And, of course, this one, of course, being the float knife / Lifeknife effort produced by the Lifeknife Corporation, which, of course, was an American company buying Japanese-produced survival knives, and they really just didn't last very long, so that's where we are with this one, folks. So I'm going to break up with this one. Eat good, keep your tongue ring, as always, you know it, you love it, and, of course, knife goodness. Stay sharp. See you guys, and have a good one, and I'll catch you guys later. See you guys.